The New Age of Bullying, from Say My Name to Say My Pronoun, a fight for speech and control. In the modern era, bullying has evolved beyond the traditional playground taunts and physical intimidation. Today, it has taken a more insidious and ideological form, manifesting in the demand to comply with linguistic mandates and ideological affirmations. Once epitomized by the schoolyard chant, "Say my name," this cultural shift has become, "Say my pronoun." Refusal to conform invites accusations of racism, bigotry, homophobia, or transphobia, reinforcing a cycle of fear, cancellation, and control over free speech. This new form of bullying no longer stops at individual harassment. It now infiltrates workplaces, schools, and even legal systems. The weaponization of speech language has always been a tool for communication, but in recent years, it has become a battlefield for ideological control. Mandatory pronoun usage, a hallmark of modern identity politics, is not merely a request for respect, but often a demand for ideological submission. Refusal to comply, even out of genuine misunderstanding or religious conviction, can result in ostracization, job loss, and even legal action. Jordan Peterson, a Canadian professor and psychologist, famously resisted Canada's Bill C-16, which compelled the use of preferred pronouns under the guise of human rights. Peterson argued, "I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest, and that's that." His opposition sparked a cultural firestorm, yet it highlighted a deeper issue. When the government mandates language, it ceases to be free speech and instead becomes coerced speech. Statistics highlighting the fear culture. 1. Workplace censorship. A 2023 survey conducted by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, found that 62% of Americans felt they could not express their views openly at work, particularly on controversial topics such as gender identity and pronouns. 2. School policies. According to the American Principles Project, nearly 30% of high school students surveyed reported being pressured by school policies to use preferred pronouns, with some fearing disciplinary action for non-compliance. 3. Cancellation trends. In 2024, research by the Pew Research Center showed that 43% of Americans personally knew someone who had been canceled on social media or in their community for expressing traditional views on gender and sexuality. These numbers underscore how enforcing ideological conformity is often backed by institutional pressure, making resistance socially and professionally costly. Cancel culture and social control. The rise of cancel culture acts as a social enforcement mechanism, punishing dissenters and rewarding compliance. High-profile examples such as J.K. Rowling illustrate this phenomenon. Rowling faced intense backlash, including calls for boycotts and threats, simply for expressing concerns about how gender ideology impacts women's rights. Critics labeled her transphobic, yet she stood her ground, stating, "I refuse to bow to a movement that silences women's voices and erases biological realities." Her experience mirrors countless ordinary individuals who face smears and cancellations for holding views grounded in biology, faith, or tradition. The slippery slope, control over behavior. The demand to use preferred pronouns is not just about language, but about controlling behavior and reinforcing ideological narratives. Once the speech is controlled, the behavior must follow. People are forced to accommodate not only words but also actions, such as promoting LGBTQ+ curricula, participating in pride events, or affirming gender transitions, regardless of personal or religious beliefs. Author Abigail Shrier, in her book Irreversible Damage, warns of this trend. The insistence on pronouns is not just a matter of respect, but a tool to compel belief. If they can force you to say it, they can force you to believe it, or at least act as though you do. This coerced conformity suppresses critical thinking and fosters an environment of fear where disagreement is equated with hate. Anecdotes and personal stories. Personal stories often reveal the devastating impact of this cultural shift. Take the case of Byron Tanner Cross, a Virginia teacher suspended in 2021 for refusing to use pronouns that contradicted biological reality. Cross stated, I cannot affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa. It's against my faith, it's against my science, and it's against my common sense. His suspension sparked national debates, but it highlighted how ideological enforcement disproportionately targets Christians, conservatives, and traditionalists. Similarly, Maureen Mullarkey, a New York artist, lost gallery representation and was blacklisted for expressing opposition to gender ideology. Her experience is one of many showing how dissent is met with professional and social exclusion. The consequences of surrendering speech. When society accepts the premise that misgendering is violence, it justifies harsh punitive measures against dissent. Legal systems are already adapting to this logic. In Scotland, laws proposed in 2024 could make misgendering a hate crime punishable by fines or imprisonment. This erosion of free speech sets a dangerous precedent. As George Orwell warned in 1984, but if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. By controlling language, those in power shape how individuals think, ultimately dictating acceptable beliefs and behaviors. Fighting back against linguistic tyranny. Resisting this new form of bullying requires courage and clarity. Christians, conservatives, and free speech advocates must stand firm, using reasoned arguments, legal challenges, and grassroots organizations to push back. Legal groups such as Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, and Liberty Counsel have already scored victories defending individuals penalized for refusing to comply with pronoun mandates. Faith-based organizations and communities can provide support networks for those facing persecution, offering resources for legal defense, public relations, and moral encouragement. Conclusion: restoring freedom of speech. The shift from "say my name" to "say my pronoun" marks a troubling expansion of bullying tactics into ideological coercion. Activists seek to control behavior and, ultimately, through itself by controlling speech. Those who refuse to comply face cancellation, professional ruin, and accusations of bigotry. Yet history has shown that totalitarian control cannot withstand truth and courage. As long as free thinkers speak out and refuse to bow to linguistic tyranny, the principles of liberty and individual conscience can be preserved. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Now, more than ever, refusing to be silenced is the first step in reclaiming freedom.